And if I hear another true crime documentary explain the reason why nobody realised such and such was a serial killer was that he didn't have horns and he didn't act weird, I think I might kick my telly in, because I think it's pretty obvious why these people are getting away with things.
And you're listening to the Ghost Story Guys. Welcome to the Ghost Story Guys. I'm Brennan Storr.
I'm Paul Bestel.
And this is the show where we talk about spooks, specters, and all the other things watching us from the shadows beyond the campfire. Some conversations only make sense after the sun has set, and this is most definitely one. Thanks for tuning in. This is episode number, I was doing so good, 239, and we are coming to you from that tiny mountain cabin you dream about, but can never quite reach. Paul Bestel, my friend, how you doing?
I was going to say, don't fail me now, mate. I'm still getting over watching Trash on, well, it should be called Trash on Friday night. And so, yeah, I'm all right.
Every year, someone has to make a bad shark movie. That's just the rules.
It's not as bad as Under Paris.
Oh, well, there. Okay, so, see, it's not all bad news.
Because that's just dreadful. Whereas this is so full of itself that it's unintentionally funny because it doesn't think it's funny. They think they've remade Jaws. Telling you. You ever seen a woman who's just given birth fight off a bull shark with a stick? Of course you haven't. Have you seen an umbilical cord disappear and then reappear? I bet you haven't.
I mean, not since I dated that magician.
Clothes that magically dry? No? A hurricane that's so quiet you can hear people whispering? Jesus.
Well, I cannot wait to see Thrash, of course, on Netflix. This is not sponsored, but Netflix, you can if you want. I'm not sure if this is an endorsement exactly, but hey, we'll take your money.
Stop making films like Thrash and make some new unsolved mysteries, Netflix. And they did Under Paris. What are you doing?
There was, a long time ago, I heard a story about a business. There was like a little food business that started. It was just selling a very simple version of a food. I'm not even going to say what. But the whole purpose of this business was to launder money from a drug operation. The problem is, it became so popular, they had to stop laundering money through it. There's too much scrutiny on the finances. They could no longer launder their money through this business. And I kind of wonder, Netflix, maybe it would explain some stuff. Like, they're just firing a lot of money into the void, is what I'm saying.
They'd be better off burning it. If I see a worse film this year, I'll need hospital treatment.
And you'll find out about it here first on the Ghost Story Guys.
You, on the other hand, have raised the bar.
I did. I saw a good film. Last week, the day after we recorded, it was National Canadian Film Day. Drove into Toronto for a screening of the Canadian horror comedy Scared Shitless, directed by Viviano Caldinelli. And he was present at the screening. He did a Q&A afterwards with the film screenwriter, whose name I'm very sorry I can't remember. I'm sure he doesn't give a shit. But anyway, Scared Shitless is a ton of fun. It stars the great Steve Ogg, who, of course, everyone will know as Trevor from Grand Theft Auto 5. Basically, it's just, it's a hoot. 78-minute horror comedy. And to introduce the screening, because again, the director was there, the writer was there, and the star, Steve Ogg, he sent in essentially a cameo. One of those vertical videos people record on the toilet for money on the cell phone when they, in between jobs. It's the most California thing you've ever seen. It's just Steve Ogg in his pool with a Scared Shitless hat on, holding the phone about 6 inches from his face, saying, "Hey, you dipshits, thanks for coming seeing my movie." Like, that's essentially what it was. It was, I don't give a shit about you. I'm Trevor. I don't need you. Scared Shitless. He throws the phone in the trash. It was, but anyways, it was a good time. I wish more people had showed, because the director, his wife, and the writer represented half of the crowd in the audience. It was a very quiet screening. So that's the spectrum. We got terrible money, a terrible film that Netflix probably spent way too much money on, and a lovely film that they probably had to scrape and beg, borrow, and steal in order to fund. But that's the nature of Ghost Story Guys. We like to represent the spectrum of visible entertainment, because you can get great entertainment with us, or you can go listen to almost any other paranormal podcast and get absolute dog shit. However, we're not here to talk about how much better we are than other paranormal podcasts, even though it's a lot. It's a lot. We are here instead to tell ghost stories. And we have two great lengthy ghost stories for you this episode. This was going to be Cincinnati, but we had bumped that ahead a little bit. It needed a little more work. But we're going to be sharing two stories collected and written by the douchebaggiest of all paranormal investigators, Hans Holzer.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Second douchebaggiest. Hans Holzer.
No, that'll do.
Yeah. And this ghost book I found is an enormous tome. It's, I think, about 1,000 pages. And I picked it up from Brown and Dixon Books here in London. I've been leafing through it, and I've been wanting to use it for the show for a while, but I couldn't figure out what. Just there's such a wealth of material, what we were going to use. And so finally I found this. I was going through it, and I found this section called "This House is Haunted." And there are a number of fairly, pretty lengthy stories of haunted houses throughout North America and the UK. And so I pulled two for this episode, and then we're going to do some more down the road. But some great stories. One of the things I will say about Holzer, because his wife was wealthy, wasn't she? Yeah. So he was able to travel quite a bit and document these things, which is huge. I mean, that's how this stuff gets done, right? Like if you're either John Keel and you have a great job where you make a lot of money that allows you to travel, or you have someone bankrolling you. And that's how you get this kind of, in-depth paranormal journalism. Because for all his douchebaggery, he did document a lot of stuff that did not otherwise get recorded.
He's certainly, like I say, I think he's probably the only comparable American ghost hunter of that era that was cataloguing as much. Well, American-based, obviously, there he was. But like you say, having a rich wife, I believe, I might be wrong here, I believe she was something to do with the Russian royal family.
Oh.
But not the Romanovs, because obviously they all died. But yeah, I think she's something to do with Russian nobility of some description. That's where all her money came from. I think she might have been a countess.
A descendant of Catherine the Great.
Huh?
What's her name? Countess Catherine Genevieve Buxhevden. I'm probably mangling that, but that is. They were married from 1962 until either 1985 or 1986. And they had two daughters, Alexandra Holzer and Nadine, and it sounds like Alexandra has kind of carried his legacy forward. I'm not familiar with her work.
She did a series called The Holzer Files, I think.
Oh, okay.
Which might have been on the Discovery Channel. It's one of those things, isn't it, paranormal shows? You think it was like 5 years ago, or it's probably 10. It's happened in the last...
Everything feels like that to me right now, man.
Yeah, it was on there, so I think there was only one season of it.
Okay. Well, there you go. So check out the Holzer Files. And again, I mean, I joke about Holzer being kind of a fame ho, but he did some great work, including ghosts I've met. There's a lot to recommend them if you can get around his predilections and his whole thing. Again, I don't know that there are many people out there doing that kind of work anymore. I don't know that there are, crazy people with money who have an interest in ghosts and use it to further that. All the people with money now are trying to biohack their bodies or destroy the environment. How can I leave Earth and leave all these plebeians behind to die? That does seem to be how these things are being kind of handled at the moment.
Yeah, I've yet to see a biohack person who actually looks young. They all just look ill.
Oh, yeah, like Brian Johnson. He looks like some kind of hermetically sealed alien. He looks like David from Prometheus. But yeah, so on this episode, we're going to be exploring two stories from Hans Holzer's mighty tome, Ghosts, and along with some regional color. We found some, as always, some fun regional stories to leaven things and keep them from getting too serious. One of the hauntings is pretty intense. I don't know, maybe not quite violent, but aggressive, certainly. But before we get into that, we have to thank our patrons.
This one's for the patrons.
Patrons, we could not do what we do, namely talk shit about Netflix movies and Brian Johnson without you. So thank you. Thank you. Motherfucker looks like a paper doll replica of a human.
Is what would happen if God was actually a crab.
So thank you. For real, guys. Every single person who downloads the Ghostery, guys, and who recommends us to their friends, you help make us who we are. But folks who can afford to support us financially, you are the real MVPs. We couldn't do this without you. Genuinely, right now, the ad market is so bad with what's going on in the economy that Patreon is just about our sole means of support. And so we are deeply grateful to every single one of you, past and present. And while we'd like to thank every single one of our Patreon and Apple Podcast subscribers, right now, we are going to thank our latest ones. They are
Trevor Engel.
Farsquartz Lozenge.
What a name.
It sounds like one from the Key and Peele bits where they would introduce football players.
Mandy Walschlager.
And Emma Van Hook. Again, thank you so much from the bottom of our terrible hearts. We could not do this without you. And if you would like to get access to early ad-free episodes, bonus conversations between myself and Paul, there will be one will have dropped by the time this reaches the general public. Our monthly live stream, our exclusive patron-only Discord server, and so much more. Click the link in the show notes, head to patreon.com/ghoststoryguys, or become a Cabanista on Apple Podcasts. And if you do become a Cabanista on Apple Podcasts, make sure to forward us your receipt or your confirmation, and we will thank you in this segment. Apple does not give us a list of subscribers, so we're not able to thank you if you don't send us a confirmation. But again, thanks to every single one of you. You are deeply, deeply appreciated. Again, that's patreon.com/ghoststoryguys. Click the link in the show notes, or become a Cabanista on Apple Podcasts. All right, Paul, are you ready to explore stories in which this house is haunted?
I was born ready.
Let's do it. Again, Ghosts by Hans Holzer. This story is called The Spectre in the Hallway. It's from Long Island, New York. Port Washington is a busy little town on Long Island, about 45 minutes from New York City. A lot of people who live there commute daily to their jobs downtown or midtown, and the flavor of the town is perhaps less rustic than other places further out on Long Island. Still, there are a few back roads and quiet lanes that are as quiet and removed from the pace of Main Street as any small town might boast. Such a street is Carlton, and a house in about the middle of the block, not far from the waterfront, fits the description of a country home to a T. It is a 2-story wooden structure about 50 years old, well preserved and obviously redecorated from time to time. The house sits back from the street on a plot of land, and, all in all, one could easily overlook it if we were not directly searching for it. There is nothing spectacular about this house on Carlton, and to this day the neighbors think of it only as a nice old house, usually owned by nice, respectable people, whose lives are no different from theirs, and whose problems are never of the kind that make headlines. But the house behind those nice old trees has not always been so pleasant looking. When Mr. and Mrs. F first saw it, it was nothing more than a dilapidated shell of its former splendor, yet it was imbued with a certain nobility that translated itself, in their minds, into the hope of being capable of restoration, provided someone lavished enough care and money on the place. Mr. F was not wealthy, but he had a going business and could afford a good-sized house. And just before we start your section here, Paul, I always think it's interesting that the most haunted places I have experienced and I've been to are the places that don't look it. They're very unassuming.
There is a perception that anything evil, be it a building or a location or a person, you should be able to tell how bad they are. And if I hear another true crime documentary explain the reason why nobody realised such and such was a serial killer was that he didn't have horns and he didn't act weird, I think I might kick my telly in, because I think it's pretty obvious why these people are getting away with things. Prime example of this. The most famous haunted house, which is probably not true at all, is Amityville, and Amityville looks weird. The house looks odd, but it looks odder if pictures are taken. I mean, the people that own it now have had it redesigned, haven't they? So it doesn't look like it used to do either. And they've changed the address.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they've had it remodelled. So it hasn't got that weird sort of face on the back of it. anymore.
Right, that makes sense.
But they've also changed the house number and things, so because they got sick to death of people turning up and pinching the fence, banging on the door and, can we come in? Piss off. No, you can't. Whereas the vast majority of haunted houses are everyday, normal flats, apartments, bungalows, homes. They're nothing terrifying. They're not, 1,000-year-old cottage on a moor. So I'm sure there are, but the vast majority of them are normal houses. They don't look frightening. The perception is always, it must look weird or evil if it's haunted. And we know it's nonsense, but it's there, isn't it?
It's persistent. Yeah, I know my favorite story is, and I've told this before, but when I started getting into spooky stuff about 10, 11 years ago, one of the women I was working for kind of took me into her confidence and told me a bunch of stuff and really gave me a bunch of information that kind of got me started. And one of the things she said was that the house next to hers was deeply, deeply haunted. And I'm not going to repeat the whole story because, again, I've told it on the show before, but they actually, because she was Catholic, she got her priest to come over to bless that house because she thought that might solve the problem. They were waiting for him to get there, and finally, there was a knock at the door, and it was the priest, and they said, "Oh, we were waiting for you." They said, "So when do you want to start?" And the priest said, "Oh, I'm done. I've already blessed the house. That's why I was a few minutes late." And they said, "Oh, amazing. You knew which one it was." They said, "Oh, yeah, it's that spooky one over there." And he pointed to completely the wrong fucking house across the street. This old shitty house that just was falling down, just not in great shape. They hadn't scraped the moss off the roof in a while. And they went, "No, man, no, it's that one." And they point to the house next door, and he goes, "Well, that doesn't look scary." "No, it doesn't look scary, for Christ's sakes. Literally, for Christ's sake. What are you doing, man?"
Clearly he watched the Monster Squad before he came out.
Probably not for any good reason. Anyways.
No comment.
On with the story.
Mrs. F's own father had been involved in the building of the house on Carlton, though she did not realise it at the time she first saw it. He had been in the building trade in this town, and Mrs. F had grown up here. It seemed a natural thing to her to settle into a town she was familiar with, now that with their two girls being of school age, and she had to think of their future. The house was for sale, and as they walked through it they realised it had been neglected for some time. The real estate man was properly vague about previous owners and would only say that it had been built by respectable people 53 years ago, and they could have it at a reasonable price.
Red flag. Red flag.
Run. Real estate agents are not historians. They're not even concerned with the present, but only the future, tomorrow's sale and commission. If the Fs did not want to buy the old house, sooner or later someone else would, or perhaps the house would be torn down and another one built here instead. The land was almost more valuable than the house itself. Suburbia was stretching further and further, and Port Washington was a most convenient location. But the Fs did buy the house in 1961, and even though the place was a shambles, they managed to move in right away and live in it while they were restoring and redecorating it. There were 12 rooms in all, on 2 floors. A broad staircase with 2 landings led up to the second story. The second landing led directly into a hallway, and to the left was the master bedroom, to the right a second bedroom, which they turned over to the 2 girls aged 13 and 8. The first few days were busy ones indeed, as the family tried to settle down in unfamiliar surroundings. Mr. F worked in the city, and the girls were in school mornings, so Mrs. F was alone in the house a good part of the day. The master bedroom was in particular an eyesore, dark and forbidding as it was, and wholly depressing to her.
I just finished reading Clive Barker's Hellbound Heart, which is kind of what started the whole Hellraiser thing. Yes. And they describe the house they move into in that book exactly the way these people describe their house. And I got to tell you, I would not move into any. I was just house hunting in Toronto yesterday, and there was one place where I got major heebie-jeebies, and I thought, I'm just not going inside. Have a great day. Goodbye.
Yes, I'm not sure if there's some subtext there going on in that description of the master bedroom, but who am I to privy into the personal machinations of Mr. and Mrs. F?
She decided to start work immediately on the bedroom and had it painted white. That caused some problems in the morning when one wanted to sleep late, for they had morning sun, and the white walls made the room even brighter. But this occasional inconvenience was more than offset by the general cheerfulness the change in color gave the room. Buy curtains, for Christ's sakes. Mrs. F felt optimistic about the house and was sure it would make a splendid home for them. One day soon after their arrival, she was hanging curtains in the bedroom. There we go. Suddenly, she felt a hostile glare in back of her head and turned to see who had entered the room. There was no one to be seen. And yet she was sure another person was next to her in the room, a person whose hatred she could literally feel. Immediately, Mrs. F put down the curtains and left the house. For a few hours, she went shopping in town. As it became time to return home, she dismissed the whole incident as imagination. She had no interest in the occult, even though over the years she had shown a marked degree of ESP powers. Whenever someone close to her or even a mere acquaintance was involved in a tragedy, she knew it beforehand. Often she would anticipate what someone was about to say to her, but she had learned to play down this peculiar talent lest people in the community might think her an oddball. If anything, she hated being different or causing her husband dismay for leanings that did not sit well with his employers or the people they socialized with. Shortly after this incident, she was in bed asleep when she awoke to the incessant ringing of the telephone. The telephone was downstairs, so she got up and started on her way down the stairs to answer it. Who would call them at this hour? Theirs was an unlisted number. She was fully awake as she reached the stairs. The phone was still demanding her attention. As she put one foot on the top step, she felt herself pushed by unseen hands and fell down to the first landing. As soon as she fell, the telephone stopped ringing. As a consequence of this accident, she was crippled for several months. Her husband described the fall to her drowsiness, but she knew better. She had felt what a son of a bitch. You're just a clumsy woman.
Oh, you should have stayed in bed until the vapors had passed.
She had felt a hard push in the back. She had not slipped on the stairs. They patiently went over the entire list of those who had had their unlisted phone number. None of them had called. And I think that it's something about ringing phones, like that, ringing phone in the nighttime. I don't know why that freaks me out. Probably because the only time a phone rings at night is generally bad news.
Yes. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, it is. Definitely. Because it's as we were saying about perception, it is a sound you don't want to hear. Because more often than not, it can only be bad news.
Well, funny enough, so Saturday I went down to, for Record Store Day, I went down to Reed's Records because he had a band playing down there, a couple sets. And at one point I was chatting with John from Union General Coffee and a couple other guys, and my phone rings, and it's my brother-in-law. And he's calling me from the UK. And I immediately, my heart leapt into my throat because he and I do not speak as a general rule. We don't kind of communicate. So for him to be directly calling me in the middle of the day and not through Skype or something, this was serious. He was spending money on a phone call. It was a fucking pocket dial. I have never happens. Again, we do not talk. We do not text. I was briefly part of a work chat he had going, like, because the work he does in the UK involves a very social kind of style. So I was part of this thing, but yeah, we don't talk. And I just heard him yammering to his girlfriend. I was so annoyed.
You must have a funny shaped arse.
I can't comment any further.
Okay.
I mean, he's not listening. He would never dare support anything I do. That would be too much. But just on the off chance, he pocket listens to the podcast. Oh man, Matt, if you're listening to this, you're not listening to this. Who cares? I'm in a great mood. I sound very pitchy, but I'm actually in a great mood.
Come on, we've got to help Mrs. F. Pull it together.
Yes, of course. Pardon me.
From this moment on, her optimistic outlook about the house had changed. She longed for a time she could be outside the house, to have the choice of running away from it when she felt like it. But her legs were still bruised and the time passed slowly. Then one evening, while her husband was away, she sat quietly in the living room downstairs reading a book. For some unexplainable reason, she suddenly felt that someone was watching her. She lifted her eyes from the book, turned and glanced towards the stairway. There, at the very spot where she'd fallen, stood a man. His face was in the shadows, but he was tall and wearing dark clothes. She stared at the figure with amazement for several moments. When she was fully aware of it, the apparition vanished, as if it had only wanted to let her know of its presence. Too horrified to move from the chair, Mrs. F just sat there until her husband returned. She knew the man on the stairs wanted her to come up to him, and she could not bring herself to do it. Neither could she tell her husband about what had happened. Much later, when she confided in him, she found out that he did not think her mad, and his compassion only increased their deep affection for each other.
I am shocked. That is a nice surprise.
Plot twist.
No kidding. We should have a buzzer. Just hit the button every time someone has a supportive spouse. It wouldn't get used very often, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, he's changed his tune after he accused her of throwing herself down the stairs. The larger incidents were accompanied by a continuing plethora of odd sounds, creaking noises on the stairs or in the master bedroom. Most of the latter noises she had heard downstairs in the living room, which was located directly underneath the master bedroom. Old houses make odd noises, she rationalised to herself, and probably the house was just settling. But to make sure, she decided to call in some termite specialists. They came and removed panelling from some of the basement walls in that part of the house and gave the place a thorough examination. As she watched, they inspected the beams and the foundation of the house, and they found nothing. The house was neither settling nor shifting, the experts explained, thus removing the pat explanation that Mrs. F had given to herself for the odd noises. She wished she'd never called in the termite experts, for now she knew there were no natural causes for the disturbances. What was she to do?
So far, neither her husband nor her children had noticed anything odd, or if they had not said anything to her. Mrs. F dreaded the thought of discussing such matters with her children. One night she busied herself in the living room after dinner. Her husband was out and the two girls were presumably in their own room upstairs. Suddenly there was a loud thumping and knocking overhead in the master bedroom. The girls are out of their beds, she thought, and called up to them to go back to bed immediately. There was no reply. When she went upstairs to check, she found both girls fast asleep in their room. She went back to continue her chores in the living room. Immediately the noises started up again overhead. Despite her fears that he was up there waiting for her, Mrs. F went up again. There are 7 doors opening onto that hallway, and yet she knew immediately which door he was lurking behind. Her bedrooms. She turned around and grabbed the banister of the stairs firmly. This time he wasn't going to push her down again. Slowly she descended the stairs. She knew in her heart the spectre would not follow her down. His domain was the upstairs part of the house. She soon realized that the uncanny house guest had his limitations as far as movements were concerned, and it gave her unsuspected strength. She knew he could not follow her outside, or even into the living room. There she was safe from him. Often when she was outside in the yard, she could feel him peering out at her, watching, always watching with slow burning eyes. When she went out to market and closed the door behind her, a wave of hatred hit her from inside the empty house. He resented being left alone. Had the ghostly presence developed an attachment towards her? Oh, cool. The undead loneliness epidemic.
The spectre sphere.
Yeah, just go take up MMA for Christ's sakes. Learn a hobby.
Talking shit down a microphone.
Yeah, don't start a podcast. There are enough of those. There are enough of those.
Jackie.
Don't listen to any either. Jesus. Psychic feelings had been a subject studiously avoided by Mrs. F in her conversations, but when she mentioned her problem accidentally to her mother, she was surprised to find not a questioning gaze, but an understanding acknowledgement. I, too, have always felt there is someone in the house, her mother admitted, but I think it's friendly. You're fucking wrong, Mom. Jesus Christ. That is a terrible read. I would never listen to a thing my mother said after that.
Yeah, so she didn't introduce Mr. F to Mrs. F.
Well, I was just thinking that. Yeah, it raises some questions, all right. Ms. F shook her head. She knew better. Her mother then suggested that a portrait of Jesus be placed out, for fuck's sakes, in the entrance foyer to ward off evil influences. Mrs. F was not religious, but under the circumstances she was willing to try anything. So a portrait of Christ was duly placed in a foyer at the landing. It apparently made a difference, for the presence of the man in black faded away from the spot from that day. However, he was as strongly present as ever in the bedroom. One night, the F's intimate relationship was literally interrupted. Oh, wow. Literally interrupted by the ghostly presence. Wow, right on Mr. F's birthday. And it took them years to get over the shock. They could never be sure that they were truly alone. And even if they moved to another room, Mrs. F feared the jealous spectre would follow them there.
What happened?
That's it. I need to know. There is missing information. And I think the only thing we can do is dig up Hans Holzer's body and question him thoroughly.
I mean, I've been involved in some strange incidents in the bedroom, but I don't think any of them have affected me for years. So I'm intrigued.
In fairness, I have yet to pop in and go, boo! We'll see what happens when that day comes.
Something to look forward to.
You know what? We are going to pause here for a quick ad break.
Yes, we need a cold shower after that.
And we're back, and Paul's going to tell us more about the story of Mr. and Mrs. F.
During the day, she continuously felt a call to go up to the bedroom, but she never went when she was alone in the house. That was his domain, and she had hers in the downstairs area of the house. One evening, while her husband was taking a shower, she felt encouraged enough to venture alone into the bedroom. A thought ran through her mind. Why, he isn't here at all. Scarcely after she had finished thinking this, she clearly heard a voice shout into her ear, "I am here." And as if to underscore his presence, a necktie rose off its clasp and placed itself upon her shoulder. Mrs. F. tried to behave as if that happened every day of her life. As if speaking to herself, she said aloud, "Oh, stupid tie, falling like that." But she knew she was not fooling him, and that he knew he had terribly frightened her with this performance. The same evening, she and her husband had a quiet discussion about the house. They both loved it, and they'd spent considerable money and time in fixing it up. But it was most inconvenient to move out after just 4 years. But what were they to do? Share it forever with a ghost? She found that her husband had felt odd in the house for a long time also, and had thought of selling it. Whilst he failed to see how a ghost could possibly harm them, having had plenty of chances to do so and not having done so, apart from the accident.
She told you he pushed her down the stairs, you absolute dick.
Oh, he counts that. Apart from the accident on the stairs.
Pardon me.
Apart from that part, she nearly died. He did not wish to subject his family to any form of terror. They placed an ad in the New York Times and listed their telephone for the first time. At least, Mrs. F. thought if the phone rang now, it would be someone calling about the house, not a ghost trying to rouse her from deep sleep. But houses do not sell overnight, especially old ones. They wanted to sell, but they didn't want to lose money. Still, having made the decision to move eventually, made things easier for Mrs. F. She was even able to muster some curiosity about their unbidden guest, and made inquiries amongst neighbours, especially some old-timers who knew the area well. Nobody, however, could shed any light on the situation. Of course, Mrs. F. did not come right out and speak of her experiences in the house, but she did ask if anything unusual had occurred in it, or what the history of the house had been. Still, the result was not encouraging, and they realised that they would have to leave the house without ever knowing who it was who had caused them to do so. Then Mrs. F. discovered that she was, after all, a natural medium. She would simply sit back in her chair and rest, and gradually her senses would become clouded, and another person would speak to her directly. It felt as if that person was very close to her, and she could take down the message the way a telegraph operator takes down a telegram, word for word. And the more relaxed she was, and the less fear she showed, the more clear the words were to her.
She fought this at first, but when she realized that it meant only more discomfort, she relaxed. Then, too, she knew the specter would not harm her. Their relationship had changed somehow since the time he had pushed her down those stairs. She felt no fear of him, only compassion, and sensed he needed help badly, and she was willing to extend it to him. This is a real Ghost and Mrs. Muir situation here.
Very much so. It seems to be developing apace.
While they were waiting for a buyer for the house, she would often lapse into semi-consciousness and commune with her tormentor, who now had become a kind of friend. Gradually, she pieced together his story and began to understand his reasons for doing what he was doing to get her attention. As she listened to the ghost, his anger gave way to an eagerness to be heard and understood. A young man of about 17 and of small build, he had light hair, high cheekbones, and deep-set eyes. At that tender age, he was lost at sea as a member of the Canadian Navy. He desperately wanted her to deliver a message to someone, but she was unable to clearly get either the message or the name of the individual. Perhaps the very emotionalism of such an attempt caused its failure. But she did get the name of his ship, something that sounded to her like Tacoma. Whenever Mrs. F. awoke from her trance state, that word stood strongly in her mind. Finally, she wrote to the United States Navy Department. Unfortunately, there had been 4 ships by that name, but her intuition told her to contact the Canadian Navy also. The boy had been lost during World War II while on duty, and while she did not have his name, perhaps the name of the ship could be traced. No, the Canadians did not have a Tacoma, but they did have a minesweeper called Transcona, and instantly she felt that was the right ship. It had been in war service from 1942 to 1945. As her inquiries went on, she felt the atmosphere in the house change. It was no longer heavy with frustration, but the presence was still there. Twice during that month he was seen by the children. The 13-year-old girl wanted to know who was the big boy walking back and forth in the hallway all night, and Mrs. F. told her that she had dreamed it all, for there was no one in the hall that night. Oh, good to know there's still some gaslighting happening in this story.
You can't complain about the husband doing it and then do it to the kids.
The grand tradition of grown-ups, it's different when I do it. Either unable or unwilling to question this explanation, the girl thought no further of it. No, she just didn't say anything else. She didn't think no further of it, buddy. This is the thing with Holzer. Sometimes he's too credulous. Yeah, he presumes. It makes me crazy. But anyways, the tiny child thought no further of it. The younger girl, however, reported another incident a few days later. She knew nothing of her older sister's experience, because the children never spoke to one another. Never. The mother watched them every moment of their lives. Anyways, Holzer. As she was bathing, a young man had opened the door and then turned and walked into her sister's room. Mrs. F. was hard put to explain that away, but eventually she managed to calm the little girl.
I'll get put out if one of the cats comes into the bathroom, never mind a spectre.
Yeah, right? A 17-year-old boy, no less. Like, Jesus. No, quiet, young child. Have a thalidomide. Go to sleep.
But despite Mrs. F's willingness to let him communicate with her in trance, the young man was unable to give either his name or that of the person with whom he was trying to reach. His own emotions were still pitched high from the sudden death he had suffered, and he did not know how to cope with the situation. In October of that year, after a wait of half a year, they sold a house. That's a terrible sentence. In October of that year, after waiting 6 months, they sold the house. The new owner was a police officer in retirement with little sympathy for ghosts. Both he and his wife are devout Catholics, and any suggestion at investigating the disturbances to free the unfortunate soul was simply not answered. The Fs had moved out but stayed in town, so they could not help hearing some of the local gossip concerning the house. If the police officer was bothered by ghostly sailors, he certainly did not speak of it to anyone, but word of mouth was it that the new owners were disappointed with their new home. It wasn't as happy a place to them as they had anticipated when they bought it. Lots of little things were going wrong seemingly for no apparent reason. For example, no matter how often the bedroom door was opened, it would close itself. Mrs. F. smiled wryly, for she remembered that the ghostly sailor always liked that door open. She too had closed it to have privacy, only to find it opened by unseen hands. Finally, she understood that it wasn't curiosity or evil thoughts on his part, but simple loneliness, the desire not to be shut out from the world, and she left it open, the way he'd wanted. How long would it take for the lieutenant to understand the lad? She mused and wondered if perhaps he could leave the house of his own free will, now that he had told her at least part of his story. Shortly after, the Fs moved to Florida. They wondered if the power for the manifestations had come from their young daughters who were at the time of poltergeist age. If so, the police lieutenant will have the same problem. He has 6 children of his own.
That was The Spectre in the Hallway from Long Island, New York. And I went looking for a few other little bits on Long Island just to see what we could turn up. And so I found this story. It's from lovinglongisland.com. And it's interesting. We talked about this on the New York episode way back. Manhattan is very hard to find good ghost stories. There just doesn't seem to be, or if they're happening, it's not being posted. You know, I assume it's happening. I don't think people are sharing it as readily. But I know I did for patrons a while back. I did a ghosts of, I think it was Queens and Long Island. It was a very, very long newspaper piece that I read for patrons. Again, it's in the archive if you folks haven't heard it. But once you get to the outer boroughs, you start seeing a little more of this stuff. And Long Island, it turns out, actually has a real lengthy history of haunting.
Raynham Hall, I think, is one of the most notorious. And there's a bar that's supposed to be very haunted there as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so this one I found is, again, from lovinglongisland.com by James B. Turner. He says, I was home from college and alone in the family house. The house had seen its share of sorrow, with both my parents passing at young ages after long illnesses. We would also find Indian artifacts in the backyard as kids, arrowheads and paint pots. The house was surrounded by woods near Long Island Sound. We had a caretaker staying at the house as it was on the market. The caretaker did not like staying there. She heard sounds and felt like she was being watched all the time. Chandeliers would move. Just a big empty house. I would often experience unexplained cold spells. We would hear sounds upstairs if we sat in the family room. You always felt some kind of presence. I was in my room with my dog and we heard footsteps coming up the stairs. My dog started to growl and I grabbed a stickball bat. The footsteps continued and something went past my door. I could barely look up, almost frozen with fear. No one else was in this house but me, my dog, and now this entity coming up the stairs. Then in the hall. At this point, my dog was growling loudly. We both inched to the door and stood in the hallway. 15 feet away, there was a mist in the hall. I had to rub my eyes to make sure I wasn't seeing things. My dog was as scared as I was. The mist moved slightly, a white mist, and I could see through parts of it. Then it started to swirl, and then moved through the hall wall and disappeared. After that, there was no way in hell I was going to spend the night at that house. I grabbed the dog, fled to my car, spending only one more night there before it was sold. So that's fair. I think I don't know. In that situation, would you stay or would you go? You would stay. Okay, I should have known.
Could be worse. I mean, what is it? What's the weird lake around there? Is it Ronkonkoma or something, like Ronkonkoma in Long Island?
I don't know, but I can look it up.
There's supposed to be one of those legends about a Native American woman falling in love with a white settler, and they were never meant to be, and so she rode into the middle of the lake or something, killed herself, and then nothing seems to have happened for 300 years, and then all of a sudden men start drowning. And there's a very odd death toll there.
Interesting. Odd how?
It's mostly men that drown.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'm sure it has nothing to do with any of them fishing and boating while drunk.
No, not at all. Not at all. But it's got a... I'm not sure what it's like these days, but it's certainly something I've heard of, it being one of those cursed locations. But that kind of story is very similar to different parts of the US, where you've got a very similar version of that story. And obviously, Pocahontas is probably one of the most famous versions of that, despite the Disney version of basically trying to dress up kidnappers romance. I'm not really sure what you could say, because that's exactly what happened to Pocahontas. She wasn't in love, she was stolen, and paraded around like an artifact to the courtesans of England. So let's not pretend that that's anything but that. So the origin story seems to be one of those that could be all over the place. But I know that certain residents of that area, there are murals of this Native American princess. I've forgotten her name off the top of my head because it's quite a while since I've heard it. But it was one of them when I was looking into cursed bodies of water, and obviously Lake Lanier comes up every time. But Ronkonkoma was another one that came up as well as having a curse attached to it.
Looks like it's Ronkonkoma. I don't know that either of us are pronouncing it correctly, folks. You can correct us. There appears to be murals and statues, or a statue, to celebrate the legend of the Native American spirit. I'm going to just follow the link, see if there's actually a name attached to this. So this is from GreaterLongIsland.com. For 4 years, passerby in Lake Ronkonkoma honked and waved as Todd Arnott climbed scaffolding and hacked away at a tree on the side of Lakeshore Road. Now they honk and wave when they see him at ground level, looking up at his latest masterpiece, a 32-foot tall carving of an Indian princess. Atop a substantial base, the carved Native American woman overlooks Lake Ronkonkoma. Located on the north side of the lake at 279 Lakeshore Road, the princess holds a cormorant as she gazes across the lake at another carving of her man. Tuscalwanta is the legend. The Algonquin princess who inspired the wood carvings drowns at least one male in the lake each year on her quest to find true love. There you go. So I was not aware of that. And apparently it is the largest freshwater lake on Long Island.
Wow.
All right, so we have one more story from a body of water here on Long Island before we move on to our second selection from Hans Holzer's book. This is the Massapequa Preserve Cryptid. And actually, Paul, did you want to read this?
Yeah, of course I can. It was the fall of 2010. I was 16 or so at that time and up to no good. My friends and I were walking in the Massapequa Preserve late at night, and this was something we did often. My friends and I have had a lot of stories of odd happenings in the woods of the preserve. Everything from half-ass robbery attempts, the infamous sex couch, and finding a dude with porno mags living in a tent. Not to mention all the things I read in the news like MS-13 bodies, Lisk encounters, decapitated occult chickens and streakers. Sounds like it's all happening there. I remember the night being dark and cold. As my group were rounding the southwest corner of the lake, we came upon an abandoned municipal waterhouse. This is an old brick building that borders the southern edge of the lake. The inside is gutted with only rusted plumbing and stagnant water remaining. There were 3 of us that night, myself included. 2 of my friends were walking in a pair, maybe 5 yards ahead of me. As we walked past the Worcester house, something caught my eye. It was shiny and out of place in the dark. I called to my friends to wait up, but they seemingly didn't hear me. As I approached the side of the building, I saw a bike along the water's edge. It was laying on its side almost in the lake itself. I turned the light on my flip phone on and illuminated the bike. Someone joyriding bikes and abandoning them wasn't that uncommon. And as I turned back to my group, something else came into my periphery. A kid on their hands and knees was visible, hiding behind a rock with only the top of their head in view. The kids seemed entranced and focused on something on the muddy ground. I asked if they were okay, only to get silence as a response. They were on their hands and knees with their face transfixed on the ground. I was about to speak again when this kid began slowly crawling towards me. They crawled slowly and dreamlike towards where I was standing, never to looking to see who I was or where I was standing, seemingly knowing where I was based on the light from my phone alone. They appeared to be between the ages of 10 and 12 and were wearing clothes very out of season for a cold fall night. From their tank top I could see pale white skin and lanky arms. Their face was obscured by their long brown hair and I could make out no features of their face. I stood bewildered by what I was seeing until they were within a couple of feet of me. My wanting to help was now replaced by a need to run. Terrified, I ran back to my friends who'd never even noticed I was gone. I immediately told them what I saw, but they expressed no concern or wanted to turn back. They acted as though they hadn't heard what I'd said and decided to change the conversation, and we carried on into the night. Drugged up kid in the woods alone? Practical joke? Skinwalker impersonating a human child wearing the clothes they think one would wear? I'm not sure. If anyone has experienced something similar, you should share. Now, I find it odd that the fact that his friends didn't seem to A, notice he'd buggered off, and B, didn't seem concerned about the freaky thing he just experienced, is the strangest part of that story.
I mean, it's either bullshit or he has terrible friends. We've all been there. I once dated a girl who we were in the Calgary Mall, her and me and a bunch of my friends. And she said, I have to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. And I said, okay. I said, I think I might have to go as well, but you go ahead. So she went to the bathroom and then we all kind of collectively went, yeah, we really got to piss too. So we just went to the bathroom and came back. She was standing at the table and she goes, oh, I thought you guys took off. We said, no, we just went to we told you we might go to the bathroom. Like, I don't know why we all went at once, but you know, women can do it. Men can do it too. She goes, oh, I thought you guys took off and left me here. And I said, no, why would I ever do that? I've never done that to anyone. I certainly wouldn't do that to you, the person who I at this point in my life, I'm telling I love. And she goes, well, I would do it. What? I think that'd be hilarious. It'd be a hilarious thing to do to someone. Oh, okay. I'm learning some stuff about you. Yeah, my friends, we would do that. You have shitty friends. You might suck. You might be a shitty person. And spoiler alert to 25 years ago, Bren, yes. The answer is yes. The answer is run away as fast and as far as you can. But it's just crazy how, like, sometimes people will tell you stuff, and obviously it's happened in the years since. They'll tell you stuff, and you think, man, your friends. I don't think they're your friends, man. And if they are, you need better ones.
Yes. It's like that person who always picks shit partners and then says that they hate the opposite sex. No, you just pick shit people.
That's it. I was actually just reading a Popular Mechanics article about this. They said that a huge amount of the study, I don't remember the methodology, but there was a study done that showed what a lot of people refer to as their luck is, especially if it's their bad luck, it's their inability to adjust their behavior.
Yes, I was reading that.
Oh, there you go, yeah. So they could not adjust their behavior in response to events. So they just keep doing the same shit over and over, and they're stunned when they're getting the same results.
The definition of idiotic.
Yeah. And I thought that was really interesting, because how many people have you met? You're like, oh man, life just keeps shitting on me. Like you said, I keep ending up with bad partners, but they're dating the same kind of people, men and women alike. There's no gender. No gender has a particular claim on this behavior.
Yeah. Many of us go through a period where we are immune to the colour red. We become red flag blind.
Yeah, I think there's like a testosterone curve with a red flag curve. So I think as one is peaking, you're just the red flag. It just overcomes the red flag curve. And you're not seeing shit. Yeah,
that's true. I've run straight through red flags before. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
I can hear that. I hear you.
That's how we all ended up here. I might have said this before. Speaking of shitty friends, my first girlfriend, when we met, we were just friends. We started out as friends, and she after about 2 weeks of hanging out, she said, "So are you gay?" I said, "No. Why?" And she said, "Well, just you haven't like grabbed my tit." I said, "I'm sorry." Well, yeah, like guy friends, they kind of do that, like the boob grab or like the subtle, like, oh, I'm just going to reach over here and grab this, but I'm like, what the fuck kind of people are you hanging out with, man? Again, not that I'm Mr. I'm like Mr. High and Mighty, because, I'm a son of a bitch like anyone, but I was at least taught not to put your hands on people. And I thought, oh boy, this is not indicative of a great history.
No, that once happened to me. I once went out with a mate of mine, and he'd arranged to meet some of his female friends at a gig somewhere. So he said, "Oh, do you want to come along? I've got free tickets." I said, "Yeah, of course I will." We went along. We had a great night. And as we were leaving, one of his friends said to him, "Your mate Paul's nice guy, and he hadn't tried touching anybody up." And he told me, and I went, "You what? What do you mean, Ian? Why would I?" But this is like 20 years ago. So now,
right,
I appreciate that once again. One of the things about being I suppose it depends which kind of venue you're in. One of the things about being a man is most of the time you will never understand any of that because it doesn't happen to us.
No, that's it.
But hey, let's make a podcast and whinge about
the male loneliness epidemic. Yeah, exactly.
Dickhead epidemic. That's what it is.
There sure is an epidemic of dickheads.
They've always been there. Now they're now just visible.
Yeah, they got microphones now.
Yeah, they're out of the Weatherspoons, and they're on the streets.
The democratization of media was a mistake, is what we're saying here on the Ghost Street Guys. That's our official position.
Whose fucking idea was this?
Rogan! I mean, technically, we can blame Tom Green. Some folks think that... because he had one of the first sort of like web streaming talk show type things. And I know it was Elephant Graveyard, I think. The Canadian YouTuber, they sort of have traced the origin of Rogan's whole thing back to his appearance on Tom Green. Because he's kind of looking at Tom Green's setup and kind of like, no, this is, you can see the wheel. I guess the wheels is generous. The wheel turning.
God, he's got a lot to answer for, hasn't he?
Canadian icon Tom Green. Yes, he does have a lot to answer for.
Is he? What's he doing?
He was just on tour, actually. I think he does music and comedy. He was just through London, I want to say 2 or 3 months ago.
Good. I'm glad he's starting to know what funny is now. Good for him. 30 years.
Let's not go crazy here. All right, just before we go to the break, and then we do, we'll tell our next story. I did have this one little bit. It's got nothing to do with the paranormal. It just amused me. I love going to Reddit for whatever like particular regional subreddit you're looking at and typing in who remembers. And the most insane, demented stuff will come up. People who just have these vague memories of childhood. And there is a particularly great one coming up in the next half, but this one is also good. I'm 36 and I went to Summit Lane Elementary and Wisdom Lane Middle School, both in Levittown. I remember these two assemblies. One was this remote control fire truck named Freddie. He would zoom around the gym and talk about fire safety. It was so cool. I think this was in Summit Lane. The second one seems so outrageous, but all I remember is a troupe of actors doing random songs about proper eating, and all I can hear in my head is Jack Sprat Low Fat World Tour. Now this could totally be some random hallucination, but I swear again this took place at Summit. Another person jumped in and confirmed that Freddie was a real thing. He actually knew the firefighter who remote controlled him. And then someone else said, I'm the same age and I went to gardener's school. I remember an assembly with Slim Goodbody, a man in a full-body skin suit that had all the organs and bones painted on it to basically make it look like he had no skin. It was about healthy eating and exercise, but I just remember the suit. I'm not even sure if it was just him or a whole group. It still feels like a fever dream sometimes. All right, welcome back. So, our second story of the night is called The House of Evil, and it is also set in New York State. This is in western New York State along Route 14, which goes through the Finger Lakes region. And we'll be talking a bit more about that as we go. Parker Keegan is a practical man, not much given to daydreaming or speculation. This is as it should be, for Parker makes his living, if you can call it that, driving a truck with high explosives, tanks containing acetylene, oxygen, nitrogen, and other flammable substances for a welding company in upstate New York. So you see, he has to have his mind on his work all the time, if he wants to get old. His wife Rebecca is a more emotional type. That too is as it should be. She is an artist, freelancing and now again making sales. There is some Indian blood in her. There is going to be some other stuff in this. Hans Holzer says that we are not going to repeat verbatim because they said things differently back in the 60s. Yeah. Anyways, she has had an occasional bout with the supernatural, but these were mainly small things, telepathy or dream experiences, and nothing that really worried her. Neither she nor her husband had any notions that such things as haunted housings really existed, except, of course, in Victorian novels. Now, the Keegans already had one child, and Rebecca was expecting her second, so they decided to look for a larger place. As if by the finger of fate, an opportunity came their way just about then. Her teenage cousin Jane telephoned Rebecca at her parents' home to tell them of a house they might possibly rent. It developed she did this not entirely out of the goodness of her heart, but also because she didn't like being alone nights in the big place she and her husband lived in. He worked most of the night in another city. There are two halves to this house, Jane explained, and she made it so enticing that Parker and Rebecca decided then and there to drive over and have a look at it. Even though they arrived there after dark, they saw immediately that the house was attractive, at least from the outside. Built in pre-Civil War days, it had stood the test of time well. As is often the case with old houses, the servants' quarters are in a separate unit and parallel, but do not intrude upon the main section of the house. So it was here, and it was the former servants' quarters that Jane and Harry occupied. As the visitors had not spoken to the landlord about their interest, they entered the unused portion of the building from their cousin's apartment. This was once the main house, and contained 8 rooms, just what they needed. The ground floor consisted of a large front room with 2 windows facing the road and 2 facing the other way. Next to it was an old-fashioned dining room, and branching off from it, a narrow kitchen and a small laundry room. In the dim light, they could make out a marvelous staircase with a lovely oiled banister. It was at this point that the 2 apartments which made up the house connected, and one could be entered into from the other. Underneath the front stairway was a closet, and the door leading to the other side of the house. But they found another, enclosed stairway leading from the bedroom at the top of the front stairs into the dining room. Exactly below this enclosed staircase were the cellar stairs leading into the basement. There were 3 cellars, one under the servants' quarters, one underneath the front room, and one below the dining room. And just before you start here, Paul, as I mentioned, I was apartment hunting in Toronto yesterday. And one of the places I looked at was this, as I think I told you about it, was this pretty cheap basement suite, but it was quite literally a basement suite. There were no windows. And there was, in sort of the living room area, I guess you'd call it, there was a door on the far end of the room that just led out into I guess it's like a cold storage room. It was just it was just concrete walls, and it was ice cold. And it's just a weird utility room that you'd never go into, that they never use. And I just can imagine sitting in this basement at 1 a.m. watching horror movies by myself and looking at this door that leads to nowhere but the darkness and spending half my night sleeping on the porch.
Why is there a light coming from under the door?
Yeah. Oh, at least here, when there's knocking on the door, I know it's the pigeons. If something started knocking on that door in the no, I would surf out of there on a tide of my own fear shit. The place before that, the bathroom was so narrow, I couldn't fit on the toilet. So that was an easy no.
Didn't realise you were house hunting in Lilliput.
Neither did I. Well, the things I learned.
C'est la vie. As Rebecca set foot into the cellar under the dining room, which had apparently served as a fruit cellar, she grew panicky for a moment. She immediately dismissed her anxiety with a proper explanation. They had seen the thriller Psycho the night before, and this cellar reminded her of one of the gruesome incidents in that movie. But later she was to learn that the feeling of panic persisted whenever she came down into this particular part of the basement, even long after she'd forgotten the plot of that movie. For the present, they inspected the rest of the house. The upstairs portion contained 2 large bedrooms and 2 smaller ones. Only the larger rooms were heated. There was an attic, but nobody ever investigated it during their entire stay in the house. Hang on, why would you do that? Why would you not bother?
The same reason I wasn't going to bother dealing with that spare room. You want the house. Well, I'm not going to worry about the moaning that comes from the pit in the cellar. We're just going to leave it.
If you ignore it, you get used to it after a couple of days.
Also, I should probably admit that the whole time I owned my house in Revelstoke, I never once went into the attic. Never once. The whole time I lived there, I did not go in. My tenants eventually went up there. I had never and will never go into that attic.
They decided the house was just what they wanted, and the next morning they contacted the owner. George Jones turned out to be a very proper, somewhat tight-lipped man. He inquired what they did for a living and then added, "Are you religious people?" Rebecca thought this an odd question, but since she told him she was an artist, she assumed he considered artists somewhat unreliable and wanted to make sure he had responsible and God-fearing tenants. Only much later did it occur to her that Jones might have had other reasons. It was a cold, miserable day in December 1964 when the Keegans moved into their new home. They were happy to get into a home full of atmosphere, for Rebecca was an avid amateur archaeologist who read everything on antiques that she could get her hands on. At the same time, they were doing a good deed for her cousin, keeping her company on those long nights when her husband was away at work. It all seemed just right, and Rebecca did not even mind the difficulties the moving brought them. For one thing, they could not afford professional moving men, but had turned to friends for help. Their friends in turn had borrowed a truck that had to be back in the garage by nightfall, so there was a lot of shoving and pushing and bad tempers all round. On top of that, the stinging cold and snow made things even more uncomfortable, and Rebecca could do little to help matters, being pregnant with their second child at the time. Late that first night, they finally climbed the stairs to the large bedroom. They were both exhausted from the day's work, and as soon as they fell into bed, they drifted off into deep sleep. But, even though they were tired, Rebecca could not help noticing some strange noises, crackling sounds emanating seemingly from her cousin's side of the house. She put it down to steam pipes and turned to the wall. When the noises returned night after night, Rebecca began to wonder about them. Parker also worked nights now, and she and Jane sat up together until the late show on television was over, which was around 1:30 a.m. All that time, night after night, they could hear the steam pipes banging away. Nobody slept well in the house, and Jane became jumpier and jumpier as time went on. Her mood would change to a certain silliness Rebecca had not noticed before, but she dismissed it as being due to the winter weather and of no particular significance. Then, one night as she was thinking about some of the events of the recent past, whilst lying awake in bed, Rebecca heard heavy footsteps coming up the stairs. They were the steps of a heavy man, and since she had not heard the characteristic clicking of the front door lock, she knew it could not be her husband. Alarmed and thinking of burglars, she got out of bed and called out to her cousin. She went to the top of the stairs and was joined by Jane coming through the connecting door, standing at the foot of the stairs. What the two women saw from opposite ends of the staircase was far from ordinary. Someone was walking up the stairs, and the stairs were bending with each step, as if a heavy person was actually stepping upon them. Only there was no one to be seen. They didn't wait until the footsteps of the invisible man reached the top of the stairs. Rebecca dove back into her bedroom, banging that door shut after her. Before she did, she could still hear her young cousin downstairs screaming before she too ran back to the assumed safety of her bedroom. The experience on the stairs made Jane even moodier than before, and it was not long afterwards that she took a little girl and left her husband. There had been no quarrel, and no apparent reason for her sudden action. He was a handsome young man who had treated her well, and Jane loved him. Yet there it was. She could not stand that house any longer, and did what her panicky mind told her to do. So Rebecca was now left alone nights with the noisy wraith on the stairs, and she scarcely welcomed it. Soon after the incident, Jane's abandoned husband sold his belongings and moved away, leaving the former servant quarters empty once again.
I am not buying that she just left him because of the house. Absolutely not.
I am.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go. That's another county hurt. Because if he was all too willing to sell the place or sell his stuff and leave, then there's no reason he couldn't have left with her unless there was a reason she dumped his ass, which wouldn't surprise me.
That's a good point, but I don't know. I mean, when I've just done the show for this week, and I was interviewing John Tantal, and we were talking about a very famous case from Scotland in the 60s, and that was very similar, that the wife and child left first and said, "I'm sorry, I can't stay here any longer." And the husband went, "Oh, okay, fine, I'll stay here." And he lasted another week. And then he went.
Okay, I guess this is just an especially rare strain of dick dad.
It's a bit peculiar. I think you've got to think, well, it's the 60s. Oh, it's the nerves, whatever, all that crap. But yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? Surely if you love them, you'll go with them. The mother of your child. Think.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, again, she's taken off with the kid. I'm going to stay in the drafty old house with my sister-in-law?
You might be onto something there.
It was then that Rebecca kept hearing, in addition to the heavy footsteps, what seemed to be someone crying in the empty side of the house. She convinced herself that it wasn't just a case of nerves when the noises continued at frequent intervals while she was fully awake. Her time was almost at hand, and as often happens with approaching motherhood, she grew more and more apprehensive. It did not help her condition any when she heard a loud banging of the cupboards in the dining room at a time when she was all alone in the house. Someone was opening and closing the doors to the cupboard in rapid succession soon after she had retired for the night. Of course she did not run downstairs to investigate. Who would? Probably Paul. Paul and Soraya. The only two people I know who would be like, "No, I'm fine with this. Let's go see what's going on."
Absolutely.
That's why I know two of yous, because I got two chances in the horror movie scenario to survive. Fortunately, Parker came home a little earlier that night, because when he arrived, he found Rebecca in a state of near hysteria. To calm her fears as much as to find out for himself, he immediately went downstairs to investigate. There was no one there and no noise. Getting into bed with the assurance of a man who does not believe in the paranormal, he was about to tell his wife that she must have dreamed it all when he, too, clearly heard the cupboard doors open and close downstairs. He jumped out of bed and raced down the stairs. As he took the steps two at a time, he could clearly hear the doors banging away louder and louder in the dining room. It must be stated, to Parker's eternal credit, that not once did he show fear or worry about any possible dangers to himself. He merely wanted to know what this was all about, This is more wild Hans Holzer speculation, but I'll allow it. The noise reached a crescendo of fury, it seemed to him, when he stood before the dining room door. Quickly he opened the door and stepped into the dark expanse of the chilly dining room. Instantly the noise stopped, as if cut off with a knife. Shaking his head and beginning to doubt his own sanity, or at least power of observation, Parker got into bed once more and prepared to go to sleep. Rebecca looked at him anxiously, but he did not say anything. Before she could question him, the ominous noise started up again downstairs. Once more, as if driven by the Furies, Parker jumped out of bed and raced down the stairs. Again the noise stopped the moment he opened the dining room door. He slowly went up the stairs again and crawled into bed. Pulling the cover over his ears, he cursed the ghosts downstairs, but decided that his badly needed sleep was more important than the answer to the puzzle. Shortly after, their son was born. When they returned from the hospital, they were greeted by a new couple, the Winters, who had meanwhile moved into the other half of the house. Although friendly on the surface, they were actually stern and unbending, and as they were much older than the Keegans, the two families did not mingle much. Mrs. Winters was a tough and somewhat sassy old woman, and did not look as if anything could frighten her. Her husband worked as a night watchman, and there were no children. It was not long before Mrs. Winters knocked at Rebecca's door in fear. "Someone's trying to break in," she whispered, and asked to be let in. Rebecca knew better, but did not say anything to frighten the old woman even further.
It seemed as if winter would never yield to spring, and if you have ever lived in the cold valleys of upstate New York, you know how depressing life can be under such circumstances. To brighten things a little, the Keegans acquired a female German Shepherd dog for the children, and also for use as a watchdog. All this time Rebecca was sure she was never alone in the house. There was someone watching her, night and day. Her husband no longer scoffed at her fears, but could do little about them. The strange noises in the walls continued on and off, and it got so that Rebecca no longer felt fear, even when she saw the doorknob of the perfectly empty room turn slowly by its own volition. By now, she knew the house was haunted, but as yet she did not realize the nature of its uncanny inhabitants. One day, she left the baby securely strapped in his seat while she ran to catch her little girl who was climbing the front stairs and was in immediate danger of falling off. Just at that precise moment, the strap broke and the baby fell to the floor, fracturing his skull. All through their stay in the house, someone was always having accidents or becoming unaccountably ill. Their debts increased as their medical expenses grew higher, so it was decided that Rebecca should go to work and earn some money. In addition, Parker started working extra shifts. But far from helping things, this only served to incite the landlord to raise their rent on the theory that they were earning more. To make things more difficult for them, Rebecca could not find a proper babysitter to stay with the children while she worked. Nobody would stay very long in the house, once they got to know it. She turned to her mother for help, and her mother, after a short stay, refused to spend any more time in the house, but offered to take the children to her own home. There was no explanation from her mother, but to Rebecca it seemed ominous and obvious. Finally, her teenage sister consented to become the babysitter for them. She could use the money for school, but soon her enthusiasm waned. She began to complain of a closed-in feeling she'd experienced in the old house, and of course she too had heard all the strange noises. Each day Mary became more and more depressed and ill, whereas she'd been a happy-go-lucky girl before. "There are prowlers about," she kept saying, and one day she came running to Rebecca in abject fear. On a moonless night she happened to be glancing out of a living-room window when she saw what appeared to be a face. Rebecca managed to calm her by suggesting she'd seen some sort of shadow, but the incessant barking of the dog, for no apparent reason, made matters worse. Added to this were incidents in which objects would simply fly out of their hands in broad daylight. The end of the rope was reached one day when they were all in the front room. It was afternoon, and Mary was holding a cup of tea in her hand, about to fill it with tea. That instant it flew out of her hands and smashed itself at Parker's feet. Without saying another word, the young girl went up the stairs to her room. Shortly after, her things all packed, she came down again to say goodbye. And I'm not surprised. Once again they were without help when Rebecca's sister-in-law Susan saved the day for them. A simple and quite unimaginative person.
Jesus Christ.
She had put no stock into all the tales of goings-on she had heard and was quite willing to prove her point. Within a day of her arrival, she'd changed her tune. "Someone is watching me," she complained, and she refused to stay alone in the house. She too complained of things flying off the shelves seemingly by their own volition, and of cupboard doors opening and closing as if someone was looking into the drawers for something or other. The footsteps up the stairs continued, and Susan heard them many times. She took the dog into the house with her, but that was of little use. The dog was more afraid than all the people put together. Incredible though it seemed to the Keegans, 2 years had passed since they'd come to the house of evil. That they still had their sanity was amazing, and that they had not yet moved out was even more of a miracle. But they simply couldn't afford to, and things were difficult enough in the physical world to allow the unseen forces to add to their problems. So they stuck it out.
I want to be party to the conversation where they described this Susan to him. So, Hans, she's a real fucking dummy, right? Like me talking about my brother-in-law. I mean, my brother-in-law's not stupid, but, you know, she's a real dipshit. She's got no brains whatsoever. And even she noticed this ghost, Hans. Can you believe it? This rock of a human, this sentient turd managed to figure it out. I mean, what a day, Hans. What a day.
There are many words in the English language. I'm sure he could have used some others.
Either that or he met her and he really hated her, so he just wanted to immortalize that.
Quiet and timid, perhaps?
No.
Shy and retiring? Nah, she's thick as fuck.
She's a dumb motherfucker.
We have to hide the toaster when she comes round. She's always trying to lick it.
It was the night before Christmas of 1966, and all through the house a feeling of ominous evil poisoned the atmosphere. They were watching television in order to relax a little. Rebecca suddenly saw a presence out of the corner of her eye, a person of some kind standing near the window in the back of the sofa where her sister-in-law was sitting. Without raising her voice unduly or taking her eyes off the spot, she said, "Susan, get the rifle." They had a rifle standing ready in the corner of the room. Only then did Susan take a sharp look at the face peering in the window. It was a man's face, either nope, or no, I'm not saying that either. And so unspeakably evil, it took her breath away. Okay, now the thing is, Paul, here's a question. Is it unspeakably evil because it actually was full of malice, or is it unspeakably evil because it had an ounce of melanin? Because we've never seen Get the Rifle. We've never seen Let's Just Shoot That Ghost. Or at least I don't think we have. And I don't think it's a coincidence that, oh, look, this he might have a bit of a tan.
Well, we don't do that here because somebody actually murdered somebody pretending to be a ghost 200 years ago. Shooting ghosts after that wasn't allowed. He was originally charged with murder, but on appeal it was thrown out because people said he honestly thought he was shooting a ghost. And so he was freed.
I love that people learn the lesson, because I feel like we're a little bit like that Black Panther gif where he's like, we don't do that here. But let's learning from our mistakes.
This is true. This is true.
Only then did Susan take a sharp look at the face. Nope, we saw that. Scowling at them with hatred, the face remained there for a moment while Susan grabbed the gun, but when she pointed it towards the window, the face had disappeared. Immediately, they rushed outside. The ground was frozen hard, so footprints would not have shown, had there been any, but they could not see anyone nor hear anyone running away. The dog, chained at a spot where an intruder would be visible to her, evidently did not feel anything. She did not bark. Was she in some strange way hypnotized? Oh, for Christ's sakes. You know how they are, hypnotizing dogs. Them and Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon 3. Soon after Christmas, Susan had to leave, and the Keegans no longer could afford a babysitter. Rebecca had quit her job, and things were rough financially again. To help matters, they invited a young couple with a small child to move in with them and help share expenses. What a son of a bitch. So look, there's an evil, expletive deleted, who likes to stare in our windows and hates us with everything inside his dark body. But you want to have your small child come live here with us?
Come on, it'll be fun. What's the worst that could happen?
You're horrible racist shit monsters too, right? Cool.
Do you want to come around here and shoot people that aren't white?
I shouldn't laugh at that, but I'm pretty sure that's on the flag. I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure. Oh, it'd be funnier if it weren't true. Yeah, oh boy. Anyways, there we go here. They invited a young couple with a small child to move in. The husband did not believe in the supernatural, and the wife, on being told of their problems, showed herself open-minded, even interested, although skeptical. What had appeared to be a sensible arrangement soon turned out a disaster, an additional burden to an already overburdened family. The Farmers weren't going to contribute to the household. I love that he didn't actually mention their name was Farmer before this. That's just bad editing, Hans. The Farmers weren't going to contribute to the household, but spend what money they earned on liquor and racing. The tension, these guys sound awesome. The tension between the Keegans and the Farmers mounted steadily, but the monetary problems were not the sole cause. The Farmers, too, noticed the noises and the unbearable heavy atmosphere of the house and instinctively blamed the Keegans for these things. Then there was a quilt with an early American eagle and ship motif printed on it. Soon the wife noticed that someone had turned the quilt around after she had put it away safely for the night. In the morning, the motif would face the opposite way. They could not blame the Keegans for that, since the quilt had been stored out of anyone's reach, and they dimly realized that the house was indeed haunted. I love that we have Xbox now, so we have other things to pay attention to instead of the direction in which blankets are stored.
Yes.
Boy, oh boy. People, I bitch about TikTok, but even TikTok's better than that.
True. I mean, I was watching a program about ferret racing the other day, so.
Ferret racing?
Well, it's not technically racing. You just put ferrets down your trousers, and you have to see how long you can last.
I have so many questions.
They do bite you, and they bite everywhere. Do you know what the world record is for that?
Please tell me.
6.5 hours.
What?
And that's only been recently broken. It stood for years, the world record of ferret. Ferret's done.
You just had a 3/4 nod pepperami down there. At that point, that's a kink.
Well, you know, it's not as popular as it once was. But yes, so basically you seal your trousers at the bottom, you open your trousers up at the top, you just 1 or 2 down each leg, and see what happens.
Russia, I have an apology that I owe you because I thought your slapping competition was the stupidest thing I'd ever heard. I was wrong.
Real men do that.
Slapping or ferrets?
Ferrets.
Sure, yep, that's a thing.
See, unfortunately, it's not a recent development, it's a very old pastime. It started in the 60s. One of the champions described it, the experience of having ferrets down your trousers is essentially like having claws with hypodermic needles and teeth like number 16 carpet tacks going up and down your genitalia.
Not an ounce of sympathy was found that day because you brought this on yourself. like Russian slapping guys, you can't complain to me about CTE. You cannot complain to me that you can't remember your kids' names because you got into a competition where a mountain hit you in the head. And this is where all my balls hurt. Why? Because I put a rodent in there and I trapped him in there for several hours.
I'm just going to give you this incredible excerpt from the article about ferret legging. All right. And you may be very unsurprised at some of the places mentioned in this. Retired miner Reg Mellor from Barnsley set the new world record time of 5 hours and 26 minutes on July the 5th, 81, at the annual Pennine Show at Holme Firth, Yorkshire. He'd practiced the sport since his youth, but had received no recognition until he set the new world record. Mellor, who had hunted with ferrets in the dales outside Barnsley for many years, had grown accustomed to keeping them in his trousers to keep them warm and dry when out working in the rain. His trick was to make sure that they were well fed before he stuck them down his trousers. Now, this is the best bit. In 1986, Mellor attempted to break his own world record before a crowd of 2,500 spectators, intending to beat the magic 6-hour minute, which was the equivalent of the 4-minute mile of ferret legging. After 5 hours, most of the attendees had become bored and gone, and some workmen arrived to start dismantling the stage. Despite Mellor's protests, he was on a way to a new world record. According to Adrian Tame of the Sunday Herald, Mellor retired after the experience, saying he was left disillusioned and broken-hearted, but with his dignity and manhood intact. Mellor had hoped that this would begin an annual national competition to be held in his hometown of Barnsley, with a top prize of £100 to anyone who could beat him. The record was eventually beaten in 2010 by a man and a woman who managed to beat, as I said, 6.5. It's 5.5 hours. So there is a brief history of ferret legging.
I feel the same way about this as I feel about NASCAR when they have those 24 hours of Daytona or whatever the fuck it is. After the initial vroom, or you drop the ferret down there, 5 hours, 6 hours, 24. No, I don't understand the appeal. The drugs exist. Go take those.
Anyway, carry on.
I don't even remember where I was. Quilt. As the tensions grew, the two couples would scarcely speak to each other, even though they naturally shared the same quarters. Rebecca began to realize that no matter how gay a person might have been on the outside, once such a person moved into the house of evil, there would be changes of personality and character. Although far from superstitious, she began to believe that the house itself was dangerous, and that prolonged life in it could only destroy her and her loved ones. Early in April, Rebecca and Parker were in the bedroom upstairs one night when they saw a form cross from where their telephone was, over their bed, and then down the stairs. As it crossed past the telephone, the phone rang. An instant later, as the form reached the bottom of the stairs, the downstairs telephone also rang. This brought the farmers out screaming and demanding to know what was going on. The phone's fucking ringing. That's what's going on. This is not ambiguous. For once, there was unison in the house as the four adults gathered soberly downstairs to discuss what they had just witnessed and compare impressions. They agreed there was a blue-white light around the form, a light so intense it hurt the eyes. They had all felt an icy chill as the form passed them. Only Parker bravely insisted it might have been lightning. Shut up, Parker. But nobody had heard any thunder. For the farmers, this was a ghost that broke their patience's back. They moved out immediately. Left once again to themselves, Rebecca and her husband decided it was time for them to look elsewhere too. Tired from the long struggle with the uncanny, they moved soon afterwards. As soon as they had settled in a new house, life took on a different aspect. Where ominous presences had dampened their spirits, there was now gaiety and a zest for life they had not known for 4 years. Nobody has been sick in the family since, and they have no problems getting and keeping babysitters. The House of Evil still stands on lonely Route 14, and there are people living in it now. But whenever Parker has occasion to pass Route 14 in his car, he steps on the gas and drives just a little bit faster. No sense taking chances. So that was the House of Evil.
We've learned a lot.
It's on them. It's on them for staying there for 4 fucking years. I don't want to victim blame here, but that's a long time to stay in a place that you feel is physically evil.
Well, perhaps they were stuck in a financial hellhole.
I mean, they're renting, though. I mean, okay, that's a financial hellhole all its own, but, like, this is the 60s, you know?
Well, it's not everywhere you can rent a place you can shoot people from.
That's fair. Their racism and lust for violence kept them in the hell house.
So why
Turns
the
out they
other
were the
moved
ones.
to Florida, they can get away with it more there.
Now, actually, that makes a lot of sense.
Perhaps that's where these guys went.
Yeah.
They too went to Florida.
We went to find some fellow racist scumbags with whom to
Shooting dusky men through windows.
God. Oh boy. Yep. So that was
What a time
that was
to
a
be
whole
alive.
thing. It really is. Yep. It insists on being so, no matter how much I ask it otherwise. So yes, that was Hans Holzer's. That was our second Hans Holzer story for tonight. And I mean, Route 14, as I mentioned, it's in western New York State, from basically running from Lake Ontario down to the Pennsylvania border, and it's the Finger Lakes region. It's rich with stories of haunting. I know I mentioned Soraya earlier. He lives. The reason is he lives in Seneca Falls, or pardon me, he lives near Seneca Lake rather. And he talks a lot on Where Did the Road Go about the many varied things that have happened down there. So rather than try and list everything weird that's happened in Seneca, or in and around Seneca Lake over the years, which includes the Seneca Lake Monster, a whole bunch of crazy stuff, I thought I would just mention a couple little things about Seneca Falls. So Seneca Falls, which, like I said, is right
Yes.
kind of by Seneca Lake, it is often cited as the inspiration for It's a Wonderful Life.
Yes.
And now, of course, I love that this is not an official thing. Like, there's no confirmation of this, but they just plowed ahead and they have a museum and they have a festival every year. And I went looking because, of course, I had to look. And they suggest you arrive Tuesday, December 8th and leave Monday, December 14th, because there are 5 full days of activities and special events. And I was looking at the itinerary. So it starts with a 2-hour pre-80th anniversary dinner, followed by a reception on Wednesday there, which it runs, again, several hours long. Thursday, there's the European Christmas market, a Christmas card workshop, Frank Capra's preview dinner, and I think they have Frank Capra's granddaughter coming for this thing. Of course, Capra was the director of the film. It's just bonkers. I mean, I had no idea such a thing existed. I mean, It's a Wonderful Life is a lovely film, don't get me wrong, but the idea that people still go to 5-day-long festivals to celebrate it is both wonderful and kind of strange.
Do you remember that idiot that worked for one of those stupid online magazines that did that thing 10 years ago going, I can't believe people think this film's Christmassy. It's really sad. That's the idea, you moron.
Because no one's ever sad at Christmas, famously.
No, and Christmas films never have a sad element in them, do they?
I love the idea that anything which challenges your emotional state is somehow bad.
Yeah. It's like, have you never seen a Christmas film before this? There's always heartache. That's what it is. That's the drive, It's like going to a Christmas party that gets taken over by terrorists, or your dad buys you a toy from a strange Chinese man in a shop, and it goes on to kill all your neighbours. I mean, these are the stories that build Christmas, are they not?
I was going to say, if you watch Christmas with the Cranks, you'll never be happy again.
If you watch any Christmas film on the Hallmark Channel, you'll never be happy again.
Well, that's fair. Christmas with the Cranks is particularly egregious.
Is that with Jamie Lee Curtis and Tim Allen?
Yeah, it's the one where they decide not to celebrate Christmas because their daughter's going to the Peace Corps. And it just is 90 minutes or 100 minutes of them being absolute pieces of shit to their neighbors, but who are also strangely pieces of shit to them too. It is a mean movie. It is a deeply unpleasant film.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I concur.
Yes, but yeah, Christmas movies, they can challenge you. Don't watch Christmas with the Cranks. Watch Polar Express. You can't go wrong. And if you want, go check out the It's a Wonderful Life Festival in Seneca Falls, New York. But you have to book now because hotels are already filling up.
I'm not surprised. It's a wonderful anniversary. It's amazing, isn't it? 80 years, blimey.
Kind of crazy. I hope anything I do lasts 80 years. I hope I last 80 fucking years. It doesn't seem likely, but anything is possible. Well, from classic films, we now go a little further east of Seneca Falls to Montgomery County, which is the exact opposite of Christmas. Although I guess Christmas, you get gifts. You are surprised. Yeah. And on a morning in Montgomery County in 1984, someone else was surprised. In fact, a lot of people were surprised. So I'm going to quote from CBS News 6 Albany. In 1984, a buyer for a quiet 258-acre property for sale on Johnny Cake Road appeared out of nowhere. He wanted to start a horse farm. And he said, well, tell you what, I will pay you the asking price, all $110,000. I'm not going to haggle. Here is an airline bag filled with small bills. The owner said, I don't know about that. And he asked for a cashier's check, which he got. And then the farm changed hands. No one thought this was weird. He didn't think to tell anyone that a swarthy man with a giant bag full of money came to my house. He just said, nope, I can't do anything with $110,000 in cash, but I can do something with your suspicious money in the form of a cashier's check. Well, Paul, you will be shocked, if not devastated, to know that instead of a horse farm, a notorious Colombian drug lord set up what turned out to be the largest cocaine processing laboratory in the country. Neighbors at the time said they had no idea what was going on. Well, they posted a lot of no trespassing signs, a lot of beware of dog signs, and we acknowledged their rights. But the whole world would find out when, on April 12, 1985, an explosion blew 2 buildings on the property to smithereens. Neighbors said the damage looked like it was caused by a bomb factory, and they were scared with good reason. 235 barrels of highly toxic and flammable chemicals had miraculously escaped the flames. Officials later reported that sloppy work, coupled with faulty wiring, caused the explosion that blew apart the lab, and in the process blew the lid off the illicit drug operation. And so basically it was the Cali cartel who had done this because I guess...
Cali. The biggest cartel in the world at one bit.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was because the precursor chemicals were easier to get in America than they were in Colombia. They were cheaper. Yeah. So they just thought, oh, fuck it. We'll just do all the processing up here, and we'll just give this farmer a giant satchel full of cash, and he's doesn't give a shit about his community, so he's going to say, sure, thank you. And that's exactly what happened. The Colombians panicked and ran, trying to hitch rides out of town, but a sheriff's deputy found them walking down the road covered in cocaine and arrested them.
I don't think they'd have been walking.
Speeding down the road.
Strutting.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. I can keep going. We can walk back to Colombia. Woo! Yeah. Stop off in Florida, get some meth, laughing. And swim there then.
You really could at that point. Swim right to Cuba.
To be fair, they were that high. I'm surprised they didn't try and flap their arms.
I'm surprised they didn't actually succeed.
I would imagine there was quite a bit of cocaine in that land when it went up.
Again, 200 barrels of chemicals that they had still not used. So yeah, there was going to be a lot of blow in that joint.
I mean, you'd have to say it would probably be that much that even if you were desperate, even if you were trying not to ingest it, it would have got in.
Oh, 100%.
It wouldn't be in your ears, in your eyes, up your nose, in your mouth. It'd get through your skin if you're sweating. Yeah, those boys probably didn't go to sleep for a month.
Well, since you could use that 110 grand they bought a farm, you could buy any number of riches. But did you know what else you could buy in Western New York State back in roughly, I don't want to say the 80s, Paul? This is a memory I found on Reddit. I moved out of Queensbury back in the late 90s, but as a child in the mid 90s, I used to watch a local public access show with a guy who sold, among other things, coprolite, or fossilized poop. He owned a furniture store as well, and that's where you could pick the stuff up from him. He also sold gems, other fossils, eggs, all sort of things. I once bought a trilobite from him, but that was about it. I can't find any record of him, the show, the store, or anything else online. Unfortunately, this is the extent of the details I can recall. And so one other person chimed in. They did not remember this guy's name, but they did remember the auctions, and they remember that they and their friends used to prank call the auction house to try and bid the items up. But no one could remember. I think they said it was on TV8. And so I would love, if anyone is listening from that region, you remember the poop rock guy, let me know. Because I've got a farm that's pumping out a lot of cash, and I got to put it somewhere. All right, well, that's going to conclude our look into these, into Hans Holzer's ghosts. Let us know in the comments. Of course, if you like it, send us an email, ghoststoryguys@gmail.com. I'll tell you more in a sec here about how to get a hold of us. But if you'd like to hear more from Hans Holzer, let us know.
And we'll unpick the bigotry, misogyny, and strange takes on the world for your enjoyment and make them seem like a balanced, well-written article from 65 years ago.
As much as possible, at the very least. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with our Ghost Force shoutouts. Hey there, listeners. Before you reach for that skip 15 seconds ahead button, I promise you this isn't an ad. We wanted to take a minute to talk to you about mental health. On this show, I've always tried to be as honest and open as possible about my struggles with depression and anxiety, because even though we've come a long way towards acknowledging the very real damage these things can do, there is still way too much lingering stigma about reaching out for help. And when you start to feel like there's no help, it's easy to start feeling like there's no hope. But Paul has joined me today to remind you there is always hope and there's always help.
We're not going to try and talk you out of self-harming right now, because we know that's not how it works. Instead, what we wanted to do was tell you something now and hope that should things get bad, you'll remember it and make a phone call or send a text message before you make any permanent decisions. As someone who knows all too well just how important mental health can be, it's never too late to reach out.
In Canada, the number to call is 133-456-4566. In the USA, the new number to call is 988. That's 988.
In the UK, the number to call is 116 123 or text SHOUT, that's SHOUT, to 85258. In Australia, the number to call is 131114.
However bad shit seems, it will pass. And no matter what your brain might be telling you at any given moment, and believe me when I say I know this intimately, there are people who love you and people who care deeply about how you treat yourself. Should a time come when you find yourself despairing, please know that we've both been where you are, and there is a way back to the world. Take care. Welcome back. The Ghost Story Guys are Luke Greensmith, who sometimes helps us find our stories. He's host of the Luke Lore podcast everywhere fine podcasts live.
Our paranormal conductor is Mr. Brennan Storr.
And of course, my friend and co-host is the one, the only, the inimitable Paul Bestel, the paranormal Johnny Carson himself, host of Mysteries and Monsters. Paul, what's coming up on M&M?
I delve into the world of Atlantis with author Sean Ingram, which I can't believe, after 7 years, it's a subject I've never really touched on.
I can't either, actually. That's really surprising. No Lemuria, no Mu, just...
There wasn't. Now there will be. So we'll dive into all that. And the Nazis, and Vil, and all these weirdos that created an Atlantis cult. So there's a lot of that going on. So it's quite interesting. And Sean is an extremely knowledgeable author and speaker. So, hold on to your hats, because we're going to dive into the weirder aspects of Atlantis. If you could even think that it could get weirder, but oh, it does.
Very cool. And where can everyone find you online?
You can find Mysteries and Monsters across most social media networks and podcast sites.
Fabulous. I'm largely the truth on Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Letterboxd. You can find my horror fiction show Fear Daily, co-authored with Brandon Scheck-Snyder, everywhere fine podcasts live. And you can hear me narrating audiobooks over on Audible. As we said at the top of the show, none of this happens without our patrons and Apple Podcast subscribers. We are deeply grateful to every single one of you. And if you want to get access to early ad-free release, they usually come out Thursday or Friday, of course, the public release is the following Tuesday. Get access to our exclusive patron-only Discord server, bonus conversations between Paul and myself, as well as extra episodes of shows like Host Adventures, Sunken Library. We have, at this point, 5 years worth of material in the back catalog for you to explore. You can get all of that by clicking the link in the show notes or heading to patreon.com/ghoststoryguys. Unfortunately for Apple Podcasts, you just get the early ad-free release and the bonus shows. We can't get you into the live shows. That is just a function of Apple. So if you want all those goodies, you got to come over to Patreon. You also get access to our monthly live stream, which is a chance to hang out with Paul and myself. We shoot the breeze on a live video call and just have a great time with folks, actually. We got one coming up here next week, which I'm very much looking forward to. And again, you get all of that by clicking the link in the show notes or by heading to patreon.com/ghoststoryguys. And of course, if you support the show at the $20 level and above, that makes you part of an elite club. That makes you part of a little something that we like to call Ghost Force. That's right. Patrons at the $20 level and above get thanked here in Ghost Force every second story episode because you're crazy and we love you for it. This time around, the members of Ghost Force are
Ethan Saragon,
Alyssa,
Amy Chamberlain,
Beth Whitaker,
Corinne Wilson,
CT,
Dextrous,
Eric Abel,
Hannah Brown,
Jade Moores,
Janani Bananani,
Jennifer Mullen,
Jeremy Kent,
Joseph Como,
Liam Hudak,
Libra on Fire,
Mark Sumler,
Merlin Hansen,
OTR Trucker,
Peter Gunn 08.5,
Woo! Rockin' Ronnie Shenanigans,
Ryan Hoskin,
Shannon Steyer,
Trash Panda Kit,
Trent Cannon,
and Zippy.
Zipper,
Exactly that. He sure loves doing that. There he goes, look at him. He never seems so happy as he is in these moments.
If we get somebody called George or Bungle next, I'll be very happy.
You can make Paul happy for only... Nope, that's... I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to stop right there. Anyways.
Quite enough of people trying to help me, make me happy. Thank you, Lisa.
You are the few. You are the spooky. We're not telling that story on air. We are.
We're not.
Ghost Force. For real, guys. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate every single person who subscribes, but Ghost Force are on another level, and we love you just that much more. So again, thank you very, very much. And if you want to get your name read out, every second story episodes of 237, 239, and all the way up until the heat death of the universe, or until they make me stop podcasting, one of the two, you can do so by clicking the link in the show notes or by heading to patreon.com/ghoststoryguys. Paul, my friend, do you have any guest spots coming up?
Yes, I shall be partaking in a live Q&A on the 30th of April via the ASAP Facebook group from around 8 p.m. next Thursday.
Ooh, exciting. All right. We'll check the socials for that. We'll put up a link.
Yes, because I've already done the interview, pre-recorded it, and so I'm going to do a Q&A on the back of it.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. So that's 8 p.m. UK time, which will be 3 p.m. Eastern and noon on the West Coast.
Yeah, 1 p.m. Mountain Time, 2 p.m. Central Time.
Let's not confuse Bren with time zones. You know I'm not good at
5 p.m.
that.
in Brazil.
Oof, nope. We're moving on because I cannot keep track of
10 p.m.
that
in
shit.
Rome. 11
just likes
p.m. in Moscow.
He just likes flexing his time zone shit on me. I can. My wife is in one time zone. You're in another. I'm in a third. That's all. That's it. That's all I can keep track of.
9 a.m. in Brisbane.
Show off and bastard. All right. So watch the socials for links to that live
3
Q&A.
a.m. in Papua New Guinea.
Oh, good Lord.
I've just made that one up.
Yeah, I know you did.
I think it's the same time zone as Australia. Anyway, sorry.
Anyways, yes, indeed. So yes, keep an eye on the socials for that live stream. I was on Where Did the Road Go a while back. I imagine that'll come out at some point. Either way, you can find all of our appearances archived in the blog at ghoststoryguys.com. Usually they come with an embedded player, so you can watch or listen to them on the website. You don't have to go elsewhere, but you can if you want to. And again, that's at ghoststoryguys.com. Speaking of ghoststoryguys.com, if you want to pick up some merch, you get t-shirts, stickers, mugs, all kinds of good stuff. Head there to ghoststoryguys.com. There's also a form you can fill out if you want to contact us, if you want to send us a story. And we do love hearing your stories. Again, send them through the website. You can send them to ghoststoryguys@gmail.com. Or, again, you can find us on social media. We're on Facebook as The Ghost Story Guys Podcast. That's our page. We also have The Ghost Story Guys Cabin. That's our private Facebook group. We are on Instagram as The Ghost Story Guys. We are on Reddit as r/Ghost Story Guys Podcast. And if you're a patron, we have the private Discord server. And you can come and chat about movies and music and harass Paul and get him to come hang out there sometime. Our theme song, Radio, Into the Darkness We Go, is composed and performed by Peter Kursov of Pizzanta Music. Find more from him by searching for Pizzanta Music wherever you get your tunes. And I think that's going to do it.
We'll be back next week, but until then,
Into the darkness we go. One of my emails, I get like travel package things, but one was Monaco. And I thought, what about my spending habits makes you think I would be welcome in Monaco? We already talked about Brian Johnson on this show. If we continue down this line of inquiry, my head is simply going to cave in on itself, and then no one's going to be around to edit the podcast. So Let's go back to Hans Holzer.
At least around our area, Uber robots have a red flag on the back.
You ever do that when you're hanging around people? You think, God, I know where the sentence is going a third of the way through it, and I would like you to finish it as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And then a television fell on top of his head.
And again.